Lady in the Water is directed by M. Night Shyamalan, and this is the last video in my series of M. Night Shyamalan reviews leading up to The Visit, which comes out very soon. I've had a great time talking about his other films I've never reviewed before, like The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and The Village. And as a warning, just like those other reviews, it is going to contain spoilers. You've been warned. Let's talk about what for most people was that first film where they went, what? Now, I think The Village is an underrated movie. It's not a great movie. It has some great parts to it. But Lady in the Water was that first movie that I went to and I was like, I'm not actually sure what I feel. I had to watch the movie again because I was really excited to see this movie. Obviously, M. Night Shyamalan inspired me a lot when I was a kid. And I read the book, The Man Who Heard Voices. And I reread it again before doing this review, as well as rewatching the film, because I wanted to present the most well-rounded review of Lady in the Water that I could, because I feel this film is an easy target. As well as Shyamalan himself, it's extremely easy to hate on this movie and Shyamalan because tons of other people did, so it makes you feel kind of comfortable. Like, yeah, I can hate on Lady in the Water, yeah, I can hate on Shyamalan because everyone else does. But I wanted to take a more objective look at Lady in the Water and try to actually examine the good and the bad and see what didn't work and see what surprisingly does work about the movie and talk about all of that. The movie opens with a narration that basically explains what this world is. This place in which these sea nymphs called narfs can inspire people who need inspired to be better people and to better the earth. And Bryce Dallas Howard plays one of these creatures. Her name is Story. She shows up in the pool of an apartment building that is run by Cleveland Heap, played by Paul Giamatti. She is there to inspire someone to do some good in the earth, and she needs all of these people to come together to somehow make this happen, while a giant eagle called the Great Eatlon comes down to rescue her, and there's these three monkey creatures called the Tartutic who live in the forest, and an evil wolf thing called a Scrunt that's out there, and a lot of that is really dumb. This opening animation is kind of assuming that we're not going to be able to understand this story unless it's explained to us very carefully. That's something that Shyamalan did with The Village. The twist of The Village required a lot of exposition and explaining, and he did that almost as if he was afraid that we weren't going to be able to pick up on it. And Lady in the Water had a lot of that. There's a lot of scenes in which Paul Giamatti is receiving these very long and drawn-out, convoluted stories from tenants who live in this apartment building who are telling him the legend of the Tartutic and the Scrunt and all of the things that happen with the Narf and the Madam Narf and all of the levels of importance of this race and everything. And it gets so crazy that you almost have to appreciate it. And that leads me to what I, dare I say, like the most about Lady in the Water. Its originality. It is an extremely unique movie, and I appreciate the fact that Shyamalan dared to make a film this weird when so many people were telling him not to do it. So many people were saying this will ruin your career, and for a lot of reasons it kind of did. I mean, this movie really did tank him for a while. It was originally a fairy tale that he told his daughters before they went to bed. He evolved it into this screenplay, and then he went to Disney, the people that he had made the last 4 films with, and they told him, we don't get it. And when I reread that book, The Man Who Heard Voices, it chronicled the conversation that played out. Disney wasn't really into this movie. They weren't into it at all, really. They thought it was dumb. They didn't understand the mythology. And Shyamalan felt betrayed because he was trying to make something original. And in some ways, he got a little egotistical, especially with putting himself in the role of the writer that is meant to be inspired to change the world. And that was not a very good idea, obviously, because he's been berated for that for years since this movie came out. And I can completely understand why, as a director, he'd want to put himself in the movie, because he, similar to me and my friends growing up, made tons of movies with each other, and I made a lot of short films with my friends growing up, and we always had ourselves in roles. And so I can see how naturally you might want to put yourself in a movie that is almost, if even just as personal as those short films Shyamalan made as a kid with his friends, because this is a story he tells his daughters, and it grew into a movie, so I can understand why he would want to be in it for his daughters to see. Unfortunately, the rest of the world got to see the movie as well. Because like for me, with my short films I made when I was a kid, those films are very personal to me and my friends, and we can watch them and understand what we were thinking at the time of making them. They're embarrassingly bad, but we can at least watch and go like, oh man, that was good times. That was fun. Oh man, what were we thinking? You know, and we watch those movies and they make sense to us. If we were ever to show other people those movies who aren't in on the joke, so to speak, they'd all be scratching their heads, understandably. And that happened a lot with Lady in the Water. There are some good things about this movie, though. For one, James Newton Howard's score is one of the best he's ever composed. Just the track The Great Eatlon, it's phenomenal. Check it out on YouTube. It's fantastic music, and it really elevated this movie far beyond where it was before James Newton Howard provided his score. Also, Paul Giamatti in this movie is flawless. You feel so much for this guy. He feels so much like the everyday man. You just want to walk up to this very broken character who's dealing with severe loss in his family and just give him a hug. You just want to wrap your arms around this guy and be like, it's gonna be okay, man. You're gonna be fine. And that is terrific acting. And he is one of the only actors who could make a severe stutter not be horrifically annoying in a movie. Another thing that the book really chronicled very well was Christopher Doyle, the cinematographer, who provides incredible imagery in this movie, but apparently in real life is a little crazy and kind of eccentric. And if you watch any interviews with him, you can really see it. On the DVD special features, he just takes like some tape and just wraps it around his head and just sits there and starts talking with this yellow tape around his head. I mean, that's a true artist. That's an artist. Like, when I hear of the phrase artist, I think of Christopher Doyle. And his imagery in this movie, the shots that he was able to create with the lighting and the way things are set up are so unconventional and really beautiful. Lady in the Water is a terrific looking movie. There are times where long takes are utilized a little too much, but for the most part, I think it's a great looking film with great acting from Paul Giamatti. Let's talk about some of the not so great acting. I'm not a huge fan of Bryce Dallas Howard's performance as Story. She's very quiet. She does a lot of whispering and whimpering, and it doesn't quite work. And you don't really know much about her. Just whatever you're told. You never actually really get into her as a character. You never really feel that connected to her. You understand that Paul Giamatti's character has like this strange connection that he feels. His stutter goes away in her presence, and he's able to suddenly see the world for what it is. And he starts to see things in the other tenants as well, as they start to discover that each of them might have a purpose in this story. Like Jeffrey Wright's character, who's like a master at crossword puzzles, and suddenly they think maybe he's like a guy who's supposed to interpret things through these crossword puzzles, but it's not. It's actually his son, the kid from My Wife and Kids with Damon Wayans. He reads cereal boxes and sees messages. That's by far the weakest element of Lady in the Water for me. It's the whole mythology of these creatures that live somewhere, and you don't ever actually feel like it's a world. You just hear people kind of talking about it. It would be like if in Star Wars, Obi-Wan was like, yes, you know, there's a galaxy somewhere, far, far away. It exists. There are things there, you know, Luke. And Luke's like, yeah, I'd love to go there. And Obi-Wan's like, you can't look at that, actually. You'll never see it. I'm just going to tell you about it cryptically, and that's it. You just hear a lot about the blue world. You don't really know anything about it, just whatever these characters are spewing out of their mouths. And so it never really feels like a place that exists. If they had shown more of this mythological world or somehow made it seem more like something that actually was real, then it would have been a lot more easy to accept. Let's talk about one of the things in this movie that people berate a lot, and that is the choice to include Bob Balaban as a film critic who is pretty much a miserable human being who hates everyone and thinks he's the best person alive, doesn't like movies, apparently doesn't write at all, and is very violently killed by the wolf creature. Now, when I went to the Comic-Con panel for The Visit this year, M. Night Shyamalan was there. I talked to him. He was a really nice guy. I've told you guys this. But an audience member asked him about the film critic character in Lady in the Water. And immediately he started talking about the fact that he felt people took it way too seriously. Now, yes, obviously it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek, like, elbowing critics, like, I got you back. People got really pissed off about that. Like, really pissed off. Like, actually mad. You're kind of proving Shyamalan's point if you're actually getting mad at that. I mean, you realize that, right? Like, if you're a film critic, hello, I'm one, and you're actually mad about his jokes towards film criticism. Jokes. You're proving his point. It is obviously a very stereotypical look at a critic because I don't act like that at all. I love movies. I can't wait for movies. But it did provide one of my favorite moments in the movie and one of the funniest moments in the movie.
And a typical romance where the couple finally tell each other they love one another in the rain. Why does everyone like to stand around and talk in the rain in movies?
Maybe it's a metaphor for purification, starting anew.
No, it's not.
Also, I like the fact that Paul Giamatti's performance and the script has moments in which he just stops and laughs at the stupidity of what's going on. He'll be saying things to story and be like, and then apparently a guardian comes and he just acknowledges how dumb it is. Shyamalan is very aware that this is just ludicrous. And unfortunately, it's one of the movie's weakest elements, but he continuously acknowledges it. One of the dumbest scenes in the movie is when he goes underwater, under the pool, and finds the place where Story's been hiding objects and things. And he holds his breath longer than Ethan Hunt did in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. It's also a very tacked on scene. There are a lot of scenes in this movie that feel as if Shyamalan had just done a rewrite or something, or he's like, I need to make this point clearer, it's not connecting in my brain, so let's have a scene where this happens, let's just tack that on, and that'll explain things, right? But the last 10 minutes of this movie I actually feel are very strong. Giamatti realizes he's the healer, not who he thought was the healer. He thought he was the guardian, but now he's the healer. And he can heal Story's wounds that she just got from the Scrunt creature. And then this big epic finale happens with the Eatlon and the Tartutic things and the Scrunt. And what I can say about it, despite the fact that it's just insane and doesn't always work, is that it's really cool looking. All of these creatures are very cool looking. I love the way the Scrunt looks. You can see certain elements in Lady in the Water that would be so great if the script had just been better, if there wasn't so much unnecessary exposition, and if the story itself had been more interesting, and if Story herself as a character had been more interesting, and if you felt like that world actually existed and it wasn't so bogged down in this strange, convoluted, and jumbled story. But Giamatti's performance, the beautiful score, a lot of the acting, and the fact that this movie is so blazingly, audaciously original, I can't say Lady in the Water is a terrible movie. I don't think it's a terrible movie. I think it's a very mixed bag of some truly atrocious elements and some really great elements. And so I'm going to give Lady in the Water a C+. Those are my full unhinged thoughts on Lady in the Water, because I hear a lot of people have hated on this movie for years, and I understand all of the reasons, and I acknowledge a lot of them as being really bad. But I don't think it's as bad as, say, The Happening or Last Airbender or After Earth. I think there's a lot to love in Lady in the Water. It's just unfortunately kind of surrounded by other things that you can't quite love. Well, guys, my review for The Visit, M. Night Shyamalan's new movie, is going to be out very soon. I'm really looking forward to bringing that to you guys. Thank you so much, as always, for watching through these continual classic reviews. I'm having a great time talking about older films with you guys. I'm really glad you guys are enjoying it as well, because it allows me to build up my catalog of reviews on my channel and do more than just the same old new releases over and over again. And I also like talking in depth with you guys, which is a lot of fun. Thank you so much once again for watching, guys, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.